so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life? Well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share, I'm pleased to have Steve Sims here with me on the show. Who is Steve Sims, you ask? Well, let's just say we aren't in Kansas anymore, Dorothy, because Steve is a guy that has been referred to as the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine. He's the best-selling author of the book Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. Steve, hello there. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to this. I love anytime that the Wizard of Oz can stop by this show, because we talk about a lot of weird stuff. We're in. You had me at the Wizard. So I'm going to start you off with the same question I always start off with, and it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
I think the simple one is, and it may be a bit eerie if I'm stuck in an elevator with her, but I would turn around and say, I just want to give you more smiles.
Right. And she's like, hold on, we got 9 floors left. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. Man, a few words here. I've often said, when people have actually said to me, what do you do? I've often said I give very wealthy people more interesting cocktail stories.
Right. Well, one thing we are a big fan of on the show here is stories. And so why don't we start with your story? I think that's always great to get some insight into the backstory of my guest. So, how did you end up doing the very unique and interesting job that you do?
I was a typical entrepreneur. I was born in East London, and I bounced off of walls for tons of jobs that didn't fit. Like every entrepreneur, you don't know where you fit until you fit. But I kept trying, and I ended up getting a job, strangely enough, in Hong Kong, purely and simply because I wanted to get away from where I was. I couldn't think of anything further away than Hong Kong. So I ended up working there and kept on getting fired. And I ended up working on the door of a nightclub. And I realized quite easily, didn't need to be Elon Musk to calculate this, that I was poor. And I had no money. But these rich guys were coming in, spending $2,000 a night on a beer tab. And I just thought to myself, I want to be them. So I made a conscious decision at the time that if they say that you are the accumulation of the 5 friends you know, all my friends were dead poor. So therefore I was dead poor. So I needed 4 other friends that were wealthy, and it would rub off on me. So I started befriending affluent regulars for our nightclubs and just telling them where the other parties were, the nightclub. I started to become a value to them to try and get into that world. So I could go, hey, Johnny, there's a really cool party down the road. And then during the conversation and go, so what do you do then? And it was a way of me stepping into that sandpit and asking them questions.
Very, very interesting. So you quickly figured out what they say is, if you want to connect with someone, especially someone who's maybe viewed as more affluent or more influence, the best thing you can do is approach it from how you can offer and bring value, right?
Oh, it's all about the value. If you think about any of your friends, every single one of them brings value. If they don't, get rid of them. The bottom line of it is that if I'm going to stand in front of someone, there's got to be a reason I'm there. Now, it may be that I know the best parties. It may be that I know the best restaurants. It may be that I can answer your problems or solve what issues you've got going on. But if I can bring value to you, then I end up staying in your circle for way longer than if I'm just a sponger, just trying to transact with you, sell you a service and move on. So I very much realized from an early age, it's never changed. And even with the people I deal with now, that it's all about the value that you bring to a relationship that creates a relationship. If you don't have the value, you have no foundation.
Right. And, of course, a lot of people, the issue with bringing value is, and it's something that we talk about a lot on the show, is sort of tapping into the knowing that you are intrinsically valuable. And, a lot of people are telling stories of, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I don't belong in the, at that party with that person or connecting with this individual. And so, I think that's sort of the root of a lot of the things that hold people back, is not valuing themselves and not understanding how much intrinsic worth they really have.
Yeah, that's going deep, but that kind of hits the underlying problem we've got with society today, and that's confidence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we tend to go pretty deep around here. Let's talk a little bit about your book, Bluefishing: The Art of Making Things Happen. I'd love to hear exactly, because basically what you've done is you've went and you figured out, how to connect with, what it comes to mind. Steve, I don't know if you ever heard of, a long time ago, I heard this story of a guy who sort of, he took, what was it? A cell phone or something on Craigslist. Something's really small, maybe even smaller than a cell phone. And he traded it for something else. And then he took whatever he got there and he traded that. He traded it up. And he went from starting with a $50 item, and he traded all the way up to like a Porsche or something over time, getting something, making a trade where he was got something a little better than he gave. And he just kept doing this. And I thought that was like the coolest story. So instantly that story just popped into my head. And that makes me think of you, dead beat. And you start connecting with these people, and you've traded your way all the way up to connecting with the who's who, Forbes talking about you as the wizard, the real life Wizard of Oz. Podcast. I mean, Entrepreneur Magazine saying that's a long way from, being a dead broke nobody working at the bar, right?
It's quite humbling when you get a phone call, or the opposite, when I have to make a phone call and I'm looking in my iPhone and I'm clicking in the the letters of their name and the people that I'm seeing coming up. And every now and then I do catch myself and I go, how the hell is that person in my Rolodex? And I will just, for shits and giggles, just quickly send them a text. And see what you've got to bear in mind with me, and I don't know how much your listeners know about me. I deal with the richest, most powerful, and unknown people in the world. They own things like countries, banks, brands. And up until 2 years ago, before my book came out, I was a big deal to about 200 people in the world. Outside of that, no one knew who the hell I was. I was just a guy that sent people down to the Titanic, put them on stage with their favorite rock band, had pop stars turn up for their barbecues. I was the guy that just was the equivalent of Make-A-Wish Foundation for people with massive checkbooks. And now I'm looking through my Rolodex, seeing these people and texting like the head of government or the head of a major company because I've just seen him on on TV or something. Or the other week there was it was about a month or two ago, a racing driver, and I won't mention the sport. I never mention my clients. He won, and I texted him, and I'm watching him on TV, and it was about an hour later. I get a text back, and I'm thinking, how the hell can this bricklayer from London be doing that? I saw an award show, a nominee award show the other day where they were giving out the upcoming awards at the Golden Globes. And I actually texted about 6 people at the Globes and was getting texts back. And I'm thinking, this is just insane. And I'm like, hey, your hair looks good. I'm watching you on the third table. And I'm just getting these like funny little texts back. So it's just very interesting.
Well, yeah, that is definitely not a boring life. So what I'd love to do in our time together today is get the download from you. How did you make that journey? And of course, I know you go over a lot of this in the book, and I'm sure there'll be people that will want to go pick that up. But giving us some insight into the art of making things like this happen for yourself and creating. In your case, now it's not 5 people around you, but a lot more than that. Making, with the biggest of, the who's who, right? It's just fascinating. So why don't you give us a little rundown into some of the insights that you think people are overlooking to create more magic in their life? Oh, dear. There's quite a few questions in that. Yeah, I kind of went on and on as they continued to flow in my head. I'm like, that's what you call a run-on, long question. Yeah, I actually tried to make a note of the first couple of questions, and I lost out on the 7th one. On
the 7th.
Yeah. So
welcome to the Positive Head Podcast.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you. The first thing I think that is vital is to uncomplicate. I notice a lot of people, they want to do these things. Whatever it is, they want to go for a job. They want to set up their own career. They want to talk to that person at the bar. Whatever the goal is, they overcomplicate it. Oh, I'm not wearing the right shirt. Oh, once I get a bit more connected. Oh, once I've got my money. You see these people go out, and I consult for startup companies. And you see these companies, and they've just invested in a $60,000 CRM program, and they haven't even got one client.
Right.
And I'm a very primitive Neanderthal. I work on basics. I work on impact. Get going, then get good. Get the one client, and then get the CRM after you've got the 15th, 16th, 20th. You can add those things on, but it's literally like walking out of your door, and you want a beautiful car, and you go and buy the engine before you buy everything else. It's pointless. It can't go anywhere. So for me, I look at the maximum and quite often cheapest but most impactful way of getting what I want done. Anytime I've wanted anything done and I've wanted to connect with anyone, the first thing I do is I start stalking them on social. Okay.
Right.
And I see, if you've got if all of that pictures that with horses, you can pretty much take a stab in the dark that they like equestrian. Okay. So
Right.
find something under $100. I never go over $100. Quite often, I never go over $50. And I find something that's a bit quirky in that industry or genre that they love. And I will package it up and I will send it to them and say, hey, I wanted to converse with you over something, but I noticed that you were mad on horses. I thought this may be of interest. And it could be a horse brush. It could be a mouse bit. It could be whatever, just try and find something that's a little bit off. I went to a party years ago that stuck with me in Ojai, which is north of us. And the guy owns, it was my client, and the guy was having this big party to show off his new house. He collected Ferraris, horses, and military aircraft and wine. Okay? None of those bloody things are cheap. So I turn up at the event, and it had this special cellar. Part of the reason for being there was he talked about this special cellar that he had built in this new house, and that he was going to do something with wine. So there was this air charter company that I know, and they had managed to get on the invite list. And they turned up with a box of 6 vintage wines. Okay?
Wow.
And they walk over to me and they're like, oh, hey, Steve, how you doing? I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? And they went, oh, yeah, you ready for the party? And I'm like, great. They were trying to seduce him to become a client. And I said to him, what you got there? He said, oh, we got 6 really fine wines. Okay.
Right.
What do you know about wine? And the guy said, oh, nothing. I said, so you're bringing wine to a guy that collects wine. You don't know anything, but you've listened to the girl on Bevmo and now picked up 6 bottles of wine, and you're going to try and show some kind of relatability there. And he was all kind of, The other thing is when you go to a big party, you don't go into the party with the gift. There's always like a valet that takes your gift and puts it on a table. So the impact of these guys being able to give this wine, no matter how good it was, to the host, dissipated the second they walked through the door. Now, when I was in the party, the host came over, we got chatting away, and I said to him, I know nothing about wine, so I'm actually looking forward to this event tonight. But why did you do it around wine? The first trick is that everyone loves talking about what they love. So ask him that question, then you can just sit back and watch them talk forever, okay?
Right.
Everyone will talk about what they love. So he's chatting away with me, or more to the point, at me, about why he loves wine and what I'm going to love. And he's getting all excited. I've evoked an emotion and a response in him by asking the right question. And then I said to him, do you know what does bother me? My wife likes wine, but every time I open her up a bottle of wine, I hate getting that bloody foil off the top. It's annoying. And the guy's like, yeah. I went, so I've got this little foil remover that's just like a little twisty thing that goes around the top, takes the foil off. I didn't know if you had one, so I bought one for you. Here you go. I hope this helps. And all of the wine that he's got, all of the corkers that he's got, he didn't have one of these cheap, and I think it was $6.99 I bought. Now, they had them for like $2.99, but I had bought a deluxe one for $6.99 that came in its own little carry pouch.
And there's a period in there, right? $6.99.
Yeah, six. Yeah. So, but he actually loved it. And then later on that evening, when he's uncorking these wines, before he did it, he actually got out of his pocket the little foil remover, did that, and then he went, these things are bloody handy. Thanks for Sims for bringing it over. And these guys that had spent, I don't know, they probably spent about $1,000 on these bloody 6 bottles of wine, and looking at me with my $6.99 foil remover. So I focus on the smallest area to provide the maximum impact.
That's a great example story. I love that. It's so good. So, you know, in the book yourself, and I was looking a little bit, like I said, I haven't actually read the book myself, but, you know, I know for a lot of people, you know, there's this idea of faking it till you make it. And I'm curious if that's something that you address in it. You know, how important is sort of the image that you portray? And you know, and I know a lot of people have like the concern of feeling like an imposter, you know, this idea of imposter syndrome. So I'd love to hear you speak on that.
Yeah, so there's a few things. So the book, if I may mention the title, is The Art of Making Things Happen. And it's called Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen by, obviously, me, Steve Sims. And to answer your questions, and again, you've put three questions in one paragraph there.
I'm cutting them down. That was like from 7 to 3. We're getting better.
The fake it till you make it, okay? I disagree, but I can understand. And here's the daft thing. If you try to fake anything, you create distrust. And even if they discover later on in the relationship that you weren't the person that they met, it can make them feel as though you pulled one over on them. Okay?
Right.
So the fake it till you make it is a virus, but you should avoid it. Now, I understand why people want to do it. And they want to do it because they want to give themselves confidence. If they want to be in that circle, they think, oh, I've got to have a $2,000 suit on. I've got to have a $20,000 watch on. I've got to pull up in a Porsche or a Ferrari. Yep. I don't have a car. I have a collection of motorcycles, and every event I ever go to, I just turn up, black T-shirt, jeans, on a bike. Why? Because I'm not giving you anything to distrust. Now, my fake it to the make it, and this is where you were saying before, I focus on the value and my credibility. Now, I may look, and anyone that's listening to this on the podcast and has never seen me, you've seen me, you know, we were speaking before, so I don't think you would disagree. I'm not the guy you want to bump into at 12 o'clock at night down a dark alley. Okay.
Right.
I think
the bikes fit. The bike makes a lot of sense to me. Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So I'm 245 pounds of ugly earrings, piercings, tattoos. You know, that's just me. But no one's taken me on because they want to date me or they want to retain me for a modeling career with Calvin Klein. They're taking me on because I get stuff done. So the problem is now back to the first one you brought up of confidence. So when people say, hey, fake it till you make it, if you've got something of value, if you can solve someone's problem and you're piss poor, then you're not faking anything. You're providing a solution to someone. Now, if you're not wearing a $2,000 suit, that's fine. I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking to solve your problem. So it's a position. And now we're in an insta-perfect world where everyone's trying to look prettier than they are. Everyone's leaning up against cars they don't own. Everyone's sitting in private aircrafts that they've rented with 30 other people on a bloody Uber jet share over to Vegas, and now they're trying to pretend as though they own a G5. We're in a growing world of bullshit where people are actually trying to dig through it to find people that are actually transparent, authentic, and real. And I believe that the fake it to the make it is a confidence problem. The bottom line of it is, do you have something that can solve a problem? Do you have a solution to someone's need and desire? And if the answer to that question is yes, then there's nothing to fake. If you feel as though you've got imposter syndrome and you're trying to be someone you're not, it's going to come down on your head and you're doing yourself a disservice and it is going to screw you up and you need to stop it immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, in this whole thing with imposter syndrome, I hear it a lot in this sort of, transformational community, self-help community. A lot of people, a lot of times on the show, I'm having people on who are really, it's a very sort of spiritual centric offering or approach that they're taking to, helping other people. And I think when people are first starting out, a lot of times it's like, it's imposter syndrome might not even be the best way to put it, because it's like they're really authentic in what they're doing, and they really want to help, but then they have these, like you just touched on, these questions of, what am I really worthy? Why would someone really want to listen to me? And I don't know if I'm good enough, and so that's sort of a little different issue that I just see time and time again, where people just, their confidence isn't fully there, but they're coming from a well-intended place.
Yeah, and again, you've hit it on the head. The issue starts and finishes with confidence.
What do you recommend to people? Obviously, you have a lot of it, right? I feel like I know I have a lot of confidence compared to the average person, but there's so many people out there that are so deeply insecure that really have so much to offer. What do you recommend?
I don't have confidence. I predominantly, and what may surprise a lot of people, is I'm quite introverted. I want to be left to my own. One of the reasons I love motorcycles is because no one can phone me. I can't give anyone a lift anywhere. I don't have to listen to the radio. I'm isolated. So I'm very much of an introvert. My job is to bring value, and That's your. But
you're
armor.
Confident in that. You're confident that you can bring value, and it comes across in the way that you present yourself, or it wouldn't work.
I think so. I think now it's been proven. So I'm at a situation now where you can throw a ton of shit at me, and you can make out as I'm a fraud, and you could claim anything you wanted to. But I'm still the guy that sent people down to the Titanic. I'm still the guy that got people married in the Vatican. Yep. I'm still the guy that closed down museums and had on drapery. I've got too much credibility now.
Right.
So for me, it's proven. When I started off, I started off very small. I would get people in the clubs. If they turned up, said my name, and got in, then I started to build up credibility that I had a name worth something. And then I started throwing my own parties. And then I started getting people, what they needed, access into other events. The more that I grew, the more proven my ability to solve your dilemma was. Whether it be an amazing hotel and holiday in South Africa, whether it be walking the red carpet at a Hollywood Awards show, whether it be turning someone into James Bond in Moscow. Whatever it was now being proven that I could do it. Now, with that becomes an air of arrogance, and the confidence is in the fact that what you do answers a solution. So I think today too many people try the arrogant route and go, this works, yeah. And they don't have a track record. But I believe that in the early stages, nibble at it small. And if you remember, we spoke about the exact same thing about the CRM program. If you want to be in business, solve one person's problem, okay? Then find two other people that you can do the same with. If you manage to solve 3, 4, 5 people's problem with the same product or project, then you've got a track record. Then you can go and say, hey, we've done this. We've actually worked with people. We know the problem that you've got, and we've solved it. And that's, you don't want to focus on, hey, how confident I am. Focus on your confidence in what you do. Now, you may be a bad presenter. Hey, you can work on that. You can buy courses to teach you how to speak at events. You can go and do a comedy store improv class, which is very, very good for being able to build up your stamina to remove the ums, ahs of when you talk. I've seen that done a lot of times. You can work on your presentation skills, but the first thing you've got to do is focus on Are you solving a problem? And screw your confidence. Focus, are you confident in what you provide?
Which I would say, once you do that, the beautiful thing is it's actually going to build your confidence when you see that.
You are so correct. It's a double whammy, isn't it? If you look after something on the left, it benefits the right. Or if you keep doing this, you end up, and as I've said to you before, I walk into a room anywhere in the planet and nobody knows who I am, and it's irrelevant because I know I can. And I'm there 9 times out of 10 on the invite of the person that's throwing the actual party.
Right. So in your book, what the general idea is helping others to sort of make things happen the same way that you have. And of course, there's a lot of people out there who are stuck in a, dead-end job. They don't quite know what the first steps to take are to, you had a good setup. You were in a sort of a job where you instantly saw an opportunity to help people who were maybe had more influence than you did, and sort of climb the ladder in that way. It sounds like continuing to offer value to people who could then give you further exposure to more and more incredible things. So for those who are looking over to the left and right at their coworker and thinking, okay, I may be able to bring some value to this guy to the left or right, but they're not really going to help me to change my situation. What kind of advice do you give to that person who wants to upend their life? Well, maybe not upend their life. They want to change their situation to have a more Wizard of Oz-esque experience, but not just quit their job cold turkey in the process and lose the roof over their head.
It's very funny that you actually have just said I was lucky because I was a doorman. You actually just said that I was in a good environment. No, the bottom line of it is I keep my eyes open for opportunity. Mm-hmm. And It doesn't matter if I had been flipping hamburgers, if I'd have been working on Wall Street, if I'd have been an international lawyer. I was looking for an opportunity. And when you look for opportunities, funny enough, they pop up. It's the yellow car syndrome. When you've noticed a yellow car one day, the following day, all you see is yellow cars. I wanted to find rich people. And in an environment where I was poor, I now found I was serving affluent people. Now, at the same time, I was also serving a bunch of guys that turned up each night, got blindly drunk, and then I had to have a punch-up with. So it was only 5% of my night was I dealing with those people that I wanted to hang around with. So I focused only on them. I saw the opportunity. I asked them, why are you coming back tonight? Oh, we don't know about these other parties. I saw that there was a need and a desire just in that tone of voice. They would say to me, oh, are you going to that event tonight? And I'd say to them, oh, what event's that? And they would tell me about the event with despair, with sadness, because, they weren't going. And I realized that I could actually assist this. So that's what I focused on doing. So I saw an opportunity where there wasn't one. And I believe that if you are out there, no matter what it is you do, look for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's brilliant, and I couldn't agree more. It's like if you're looking for it, you see it, and when you believe, there are no problems, there are solutions, there are opportunities hidden everywhere. It's obviously you're sort of a walking billboard for that. So definitely agree with what you're saying there. So
I always say to people that I'm a bricklayer from East London that's now working with Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and the Pope. If I'm doing it, you're shit out of excuses already.
You got a very valid point, my friend. It's great. So good. So I'd love, we love to hear stories on the show. I'd love to hear some of your favorite stories. Let's do a little story time, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so give me a theme.
Well, okay. So here's the typical stories we like to ask on the show is stories of synchronicity or serendipity, or even like, we like the woo-woo positive paranormal kind of story. Now that I don't know if you have anything like that up your sleeve, but that's always like my favorite kind of story. I'm pretty sure with the type of things that you've done, even if there isn't a synchronistic or serendipitous kind of magical Wizard of Oz-esque, happening in there, it will be highly entertaining. So, whatever bubbles up for you.
Whenever I'm on a show, TV, radio, whatever, podcast, my focus is to make anyone listening smarter by the time I leave than when I came on. And 9 times out of 10, they get smarter by doing less. And most of that they do currently is panicking, analysis, all of that kind of shit that is of no benefit to anybody. Okay? So I do have a story for you that's got a dark side. And I'm hoping it will help the people that are listening. And it gives you a little bit of woo-woo, and it gives you a little bit of celeb. So with your permission, I'll tell that story.
Permission granted, my friend.
Thank you, sir. So I'm in Rome a couple of years ago, and it's a Sunday afternoon. I get a phone call from a client of mine, and he said that he was taking his future wife and her mum and dad, and I think a best friend, down to Florence, and he wanted to show off and take them to an exclusive restaurant. Can you sort it out, Steve? Certainly. So I'd been working with the client for many years. I knew his bank balance. I knew, the kind of things he wanted. When he says, AB, I know he wants CD. So, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I went down to Florence the following day. Again, I was in Rome, so I was very local, which made it easier for me. So I popped down there and I pulled off a couple of things, and I spoke to a couple of people in Florence who were very well connected. They were clients of mine, and I wanted to see how far I could go. Now, the client had asked me for a restaurant. If I had given him a restaurant, I would have given him what he asked for. But I openly say I've never given a client what they asked for. I've given them what they wanted and desired. 2 different things.
Interesting.
Okay?
Very interesting.
So listen to the client and hear the client. Okay? There's quite often a disconnect. So
interesting.
I knew the client wanted to impress the mum and dad because he was going to be proposing to he'd already proposed, but he wanted to show off that he could secure and look after his new wife and their daughter. So, and also I knew that if I went for the moon in what I was trying to achieve and failed, I'd grab some stars on the way down, and it would be far further than just a normal restaurant. Okay? So I was quite open, and I'm very open to failure. I invite failure. I invite it because that tells me where my corner is. It tells me where my cracking point is. And then if I can secure that, I can then go a lot further. So I always try to see how far I can push it. So I had a very powerful gentleman in Florence that connected me and actually allowed me to close down the Accademia Museum in Florence. This is one of the oldest museums in the world, and it houses the infamous Michelangelo's David sculpture. Okay?
Wow.
Michelangelo's David is probably more famous than, well, it is more famous than the Statue of Liberty. It's also a few centuries older. So this museum houses Michelangelo's David. They allowed me to set up a table of 6 at the feet of Michelangelo's David at 9 o'clock at night. And then while the clients are eating food and there is a string quartet playing in a corner, I had Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade them during dinner.
Wow.
Now, that shows you how far I take things. I go any one of those things. If I hadn't have got the museum, I'd have still done well by getting him a nice location. If I hadn't have got Andrea Bocelli, they weren't expecting it, so they would have been happy with the string quartet. So everything I did, I took as far as I could take it and not how far the client wanted me to take it. So if a client wants you for a blue cupcake, don't just give him a blue cupcake. Give him a blue one, a green one, and a red one, and say, hey, here's your blue one, but I thought you may want to try these as well. You know? Give people more than what they ask for every single time. Now, here's where the story gets dark. Okay? So during my conversations over a 24-hour period, the Monday and Tuesday, when I'm now down in Florence, and it was Wednesday night that we were doing this, there were a number of people within the academia that were giving me a bit of the eyeball because they didn't like the idea that this cultural museum was being used as a cafeteria, as a restaurant. Okay?
Right.
And you get these people that are heavily ingrained in things, and they just hate you. They look at you as just a rich kid that doesn't fully understand the history of this building, those kind of things. Right. So during this, I was luckily dealing with the more powerful people of the museum. There was this one guy that you could just see did not really want to connect with me very well. Okay? So, and it was pretty obvious he didn't really want to talk to me. So what I did...
a museum? He was one of the guys, part of the museum?
He was one of the head curators. He wasn't powerful enough to say no to me because I was talking to people above him, but he was one of the guys in charge of the museum that kind of looked down his nose a little bit at me.
Gotcha.
All right? So during the night, on the Wednesday night, it's about 7 o'clock in the evening, I'm in this museum. I'm at the feet of Michelangelo's David. They've just set up the table, and in the corner is Andrea Bocelli just warming up his throat. Okay? It was a magical scene that I could not believe I had pulled off. Okay? And I'm feeling pretty damn proud of myself. So I look over, and there's the curator. So, I hate to say it, but I was feeling a little bit bitchy towards this guy, because he was giving me the evil eye quite a bit on the way up. So I looked at him, and I said to him, and I invited him over to me. And he walks over, and I said, that table looks pretty good, doesn't it? Now, the first thing you need to understand about that question is, one of my tricks, I never ask a question that you can answer with a yes or a no unless I stand no liability on what the answer is going to be.
Interesting.
If I said, can I have this museum Wednesday night? They could answer yes or no. But instead, I asked, what needs to happen in order for me to have this museum? So I repositioned the question. I never put myself in a liability of a yes or no question.
Love that.
It didn't really matter. I was already there. I couldn't give a shit if he said yes or no. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
So I said to him,
right.
Is that a beautiful table? And he looked and he went, yes, it is. And I said, and having Andrea Bocelli here to actually sing tonight? You're going to be here to hear him? And he was like, yes. I said, is that not wonderful? He was like, it is beautiful. It is wonderful. Thank you. And I'm actually feeling quite a bit of swelling ego on in me now, because I'm thinking this guy that didn't like me, he could have stopped me now. But yeah, I'm here. So I'm actually having a little prod. And I said to him, did you ever think this would happen in the academia? And he looked at me and he said, no, I never did. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm giving him a couple of jabs now. I'm about to do the. So I looked at him and I went, so why did you do it? Now, I knew that he didn't have the authority to basically say no, but he could have made it harder than he did. So I turned around. Yeah. So he turned around to me and he said to me, because no one ever asked. And it just killed me. I suddenly realized I was expecting the answer to kind of be, well, you're the most connected person, Steve, and you're so smooth, good looking, whatever. But no, he actually said no one's ever asked, which made me realize that 99% of people fail to actually ask for what they want. And there lies the problem. The fact that I asked, I got. And then I asked Andrea, and I got. And then I asked the string quartet, and I got. Most people fail to even start with an ask.
Right.
There you go. I hope that story helps you.
What a great lesson. It really is. You're never going to get it if you don't ask. And I love how you talk about, sort of seeing how far you can push it. And that's even something that I've talked about before on the show, ask for more than you're really even trying to get. And, I early on, many years ago when I first started working and, been an entrepreneur my whole life, but a few times have worked for other people. And one of the things I did that was the best experience of my life was working at a car dealership for a little bit in like 21 years old or maybe 23 years old. So it was such a great experience. I remember a particular manager, he had just gotten promoted to manager and he wanted to drive this Cadillac. Once you became a manager, they would give you a car that you could use. So he wanted to drive this Cadillac, and he basically went to his boss and was begging to get this like very exclusive, Corvette or something, more expensive and nicer. And there, he kind of like fought really hard to try and get that. And they were like, no. He goes, okay, fine. Could I have, can I have the Cadillac then? And of course they were like, yes, okay, well, we'll settle there. We'll give you the Cadillac. Well, he was really just going for the Cadillac the whole time. And I remember him like sharing that story with me. And, as a 23-year-old, I'm like, wow, that's really brilliant. And that's what you made me think of with that story. All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. You threw out a couple of things in your story that I'd love to chat a little bit about. One, you said invite failure. Failure is one of those things that a lot of people are scared to death of, so they never even get off the sidelines. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Absolutely. So, and I'm going to answer with a story. I was again, we've already established I'm a motorcycle guy. So I was at an event in Austin, Texas, a couple of years ago, and it was the MotoGP race. And there was this guy working on a motorcycle there, and I had passes in the pits. Part of the perk of my job is that I get into places. And I'm in the pits while these guys are working on the bikes. This guy's actually working on the side of an engine. And I actually come down and I'm crouched next to him. Now, I've got all the passes around my neck that say I'm a bigwig and that, he has to put up with me. So, and you can see the guy doesn't want to bloody talk to me. And I'm next to him and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just like working with me. He's like, I'm checking things. And I'm like, okay. So what part are you working on? And I'm trying to get into a conversation and he doesn't want to get into the conversation. Right. And I'm still looking over it and my head's in his face over this bloody bike. So after about the fourth question, again, I'm a big fella. After about the fourth question, he turns around and he said, I'm trying to see where it fails. And I said, has it failed? And he turned around and he said, no, but it has to. And I said, hang on a minute. Why does it have to fail? If you're so damn good and this is so, meticulously engineered, why does it have to fail? He said, because until it fails, we can't fix it and make it go faster. So they invite where the stress points are. They invite where the cracks appear. They invite where things suddenly start creating friction. Because as soon as they find those elements of stress, the weakest links, they can shore those up and demand more from the engine. Now, this hit me so strong that after the race, I found the guy again. I spoke to him, I chatted, I told him what I did. We went out for a meal that night, and I still keep in contact with him. But he was the one that taught me the power and benefit of failure. Because until you fail, you really have no idea what's necessary to make it stronger.
Right.
And with me, when something fails in my communication, in what I'm doing, in how I actually pull something off, until it fails, I don't know how to make me better. I often say I never trust anyone without a few scars. If everything's going beautiful throughout your entire life, great. Come and talk to me when things don't, because that's when you start to see what the man's made of.
Right.
Or woman.
Right. Yeah, I fully agree. You see, a lot of times, people who maybe grew up with a silver spoon, very wealthy, you've probably seen a lot of it, really wealthy, families and have had everything catered to them their whole lives. I've always looked at that and thought, wow, that's actually one of the most challenging circumstances you could come into your life and have, because then, you don't have any idea, you don't really value things as much. You don't have the perspective to be resilient. And when something does really go wrong, or if everything gets upended, it's like you don't have any idea what to do. You've just been, catered to your whole life. And I think that's, that's something that is much. I mean, obviously they don't have some of the difficulties as someone who's dirt poor living in a mud hut, but it's sort of a different kind of challenge, I think.
Yeah, you're right. When people, the beautiful thing about when you fail and fall over is that you get up. And when you get up, you never get up to the same height. You actually grow because you've conquered that. You notice that when you're walking down your path and you trip on a curb, you very, very rarely trip on the same curb twice, because you learn from it. You become educated from it. If you look at someone like Elon Musk is one of the biggest failures in the planet. Okay? And I'm thrilled that he is, because he never allowed it to define him. He allowed it to refine him. So every time you would watch TV and you'd see this rocket come down and land on the floating platforms in the ocean, it would tip over and it would explode, and then it lands perfectly. When was the last time you saw a televised landing of one of those rockets? You don't, because he's succeeded now. People only like to look at things when they go crash, bang, wallop, and explode into loads of colors. But once the person's got it nailed, they lose interest.
Right.
So I'm a great fan that he's a failure, and it allows him to grow. And I openly fail on a regular basis. I don't know how many failures I've made this week, but I guarantee you, before Friday night, my wife would be coming at me going, "What the bloody hell did you do this for?" And I'd be like, "Oh, crap, I didn't realize." Okay.
Yeah, that's such a valuable piece of advice and perspective, because there's so many people who, they never even will play the game because they're scared of failure. And once you understand how important, you either win or you learn and grow. And I think that perspective shift is a very, very important one. What are people? Here's a question for you. What are people? What's something they shouldn't be doing that currently are? What's something that you've seen a lot of? Because obviously you're so perceptive on sort of the psychology of individuals, and that's what's fascinating. Some of the perspectives you shared, I'm like, that's such deep insight into the inner workings of the human psyche. Like, what are people, you see a lot of the mistakes that people are making?
Well, the common mistake, because we're in that insta-perfect world that we spoke about, where everyone looks prettier, thinner, taller, richer than they actually are, we're scared of the humiliation of actually not living up to that. And the downside is that everyone out there now that's thinking of starting their own business, or that actually has their own business, is trying to make it perfect. And perfection is a unicorn with 3 testicles. It doesn't exist. So I'm a great believer that you need to stop searching perfection. You need to just get going. When you get going, get better, then get better, then get better. But perfection, it doesn't exist. And I meet so many people, especially in my consulting, in my course, when I do speeches, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start this, but I want to make sure it does, and I've got to get there, and I've got to get that way. No. If you want to start in business by becoming a florist, the following day, make a bouquet. Buy the flowers, make a bouquet, stick it up on Facebook and go, hey, is this pretty? Find out if anyone else agrees with you. Get going. Basics. Take baby steps and get going, then get good. But the word perfection, that's scary. And to be honest with you, I've seen it be the death of so many businesses because they're constantly striving for it. They're constantly searching for it. And as I've said openly, it does not exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect is the enemy of good enough. I had a very successful business partner once tell me that, and it always stuck with me. It's like, a lot of times people make fanfare of the launch of whatever it is, their website, let's say. And it's like, you find after you've done that a few times, it's like there's really the one who's really concerned about the fanfare of it all is you. It's like, get out there, start making mistakes, start learning. That is the path. Yep.
No, exactly. There's too many people that can worry about, and that's the thing. We're worried about what other people think way too much now. We won't do what we do for fear of someone else seeing us fall.
Right. And, of course, that's the big one for people, fear, overcoming that fear. And would you say that it's just having the proper perspective to sort of, help those who are just frozen with fear to overcome it? Understanding that failure is good. Like what, how do you help someone who's just frozen with fear? We really care way too much what people that are irrelevant to us are saying. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all these things. And every now and then I'll get people yelling at me. And they can't afford me. They will never be a client of mine. So what do I care? It really is a case of there are people out there that just have nothing better to do than just throw crap at you. And before you start responding to it, ask yourself, what's the relevance of this person in my life? Why should I give a shit? If someone says to you, I was on your website and I hit this button and then it went to an error page, that's helpful criticism. Okay, that's helping you make sure that you've got over a problem, you haven't lost a sale. But if someone goes, oh, I hate you, you're so full of yourself, is that person ever going to buy your course? Is that person ever going to buy your book? No.
Is that person ever going to consult with you? No. So, good luck to you, mate. Goodbye. There's just no relevance to it.
Right. Yeah. And I think something that you've touched on too, a little bit, and I touch a lot on the show is, instead of this sort of faking it till you make it idea that a lot of us have been told and taught is the way to do it, it's actually sort of the opposite is the best way to connect with people, which is being real and being vulnerable. I feel like being vulnerable is sort of the new. It's like an aha for a lot of people. It's like, hold on, if I vulnerably share something that I'm even insecure about or whatever, it people relate to that and then can connect.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that. And it goes back to you doing the fake it till you make it and people trying to pretend that they are who they're not. I realized years ago that it took absolutely zero effort for me to be me. And I'm actually very, very good at being me with no effort. So when you go to someone and you are you, they can feel more comfortable. And I said to you before, I'm not stunningly good looking. I'm not going to be doing any male modeling anytime bloody soon. I'm no rocket scientist. And my emails, for God's sake, I can't write very good copy. So I have trouble with my grammar. So what do? I don't do any of those things. I focus on what I can do. And people like that. The fact that they look at me. When I released my book, the amount of my clients have contacted me going, how the bloody hell did you release a book? You can't even write an email. So
that's so funny.
It's a standing joke, but I got a ghostwriter to help me because I knew it was a weakness of mine. So I don't take it. I don't take it as vulnerability. I take it as transparency. There's some things that I'm remarkably good at, and there's a million things that I'm shit at. So the things that I'm not very good at, I just don't do. I remember a friend of mine, Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan said that if you focus on your weaknesses enough, you end up with really, really strong weaknesses.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, and I love that you even just sharing that is vulnerable, right? A lot of people are like, using a ghostwriter. Oh, there's all kinds of thoughts and opinions about that. But in the way that you presented it right there, it's like people mirror and feel the way you do about things, right? And so in the way you presented it there, you presented it in a way that like, hey, this makes a lot of sense and I feel really great about it. And so as a result, as I'm receiving that information, I feel really good about it. And I think that's a really interesting thing for people to kind of start understanding. People are going to mirror the way you're feeling and thinking about a particular topic.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of times.
I think a lot of people now, let's not forget it. We're human beings and we want to connect. And we're in a world where that connection is becoming very, very hard to actually effectively and authentically do. So the times that they can actually meet someone, they go, whoa, he's actually flawed. He's actually a human being. Yep. I want to be with this person. Because when you are you with someone, you grant them permission to be them. And then they can ditch the suit. They can ditch the shield. They can ditch the pretense and just go, oh, God. The amount of people that I know and that I work with that are incredibly brilliant, genius at one or two things and moronic at others. The fact is that people go, how do you deal with rich people? Well, rich people are poor people with a lot of money. Just start thinking of it like that. It just makes a complete difference.
It's so good. I love that. It's such a great perspective shift, right?
Yep. It helps me, and it has done for 20 plus years. So I'm urging people to, as I said to you before, most people get further by getting rid of the shit. And most of that shit is kind of like their fault because they are putting the problems in front of themselves that don't exist.
Right. Well, as we sort of start to wind down here, Steve, is there any other stories that come to mind? Like I said, we love good stories, and I bet you could tell stories for days. Is there any particular stories that come to mind that you think would be sort of, I don't know, maybe the most interesting or inspiring that sort of ties together a lot of this?
Oh, dear. That ties together. I don't know. I think my life has allowed me to become very comfortable in being uncomfortable. So I've never repeated the same experience twice. I've never tried to do the same thing that favors or looks similar to anything else. I've always tried to do things that are very different. And that allows me to get in different sandpits. So I like the energy it gives me and the fuel it gives me to constantly try different things. I actually did something years ago, which has actually worked very well for me. I try to break habits. Now, most people won't do things because they do what they do and they know it works. So here's a little test for you. The next time you go to a restaurant, order something off the appetizers because they're the cheapest part of the menu that you've never eaten before or you'd never consider eating. Okay? Try something different. On your way to work, go a different route that you've never been before. See a street that you've never seen before. Go and listen to the radio station that you've never heard before. You'll be surprised that the more of these little things that you try to do that takes you out of your rut, the greater you will grow and the more receptive to change and opportunity you become.
Yeah, I love that. That's a wonderful piece of advice. Very, very good. Well, what is, for those who are interested in continuing to follow your work, and I know you have a course or program or something like that you have recently put together, maybe now would be a good time to share a little bit about that.
Sure. So we put a course together. It's called The Distillery, and it's an ongoing course. So it's a monthly, I think it's like $49.99, and it's at bluefishsteve.com. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to put a bunch of training videos on there that you could be helped with and grow. But also we want to add videos. So every month we add like another 3 or 4 videos to keep that training going. And we also provide options to come to our events, our speakeasies, where I'm going to be speaking at. So it's our central hub to help your growth, called The Distillery at bluefishsteve.com.
Excellent. And these speakeasies, you're telling me a little bit about that. Maybe share a little bit, because I thought that was a really interesting concept you've got there.
Yeah, and I may actually have something for you and your listeners that may help that we touched on earlier. So I've been to a lot of events because I've 9 times out of 10 spoken at these events. And I've noticed that the speakers go up on stage, they speak for an hour, they get off the stage, then it's another speaker and they get off. Then it's another speaker and they get off. And it can be very tiring to the people in the audience. So I worked in reverse. We have something called a speakeasy. And we do 3 or 4 a year. We've done them in San Diego, New York. We're doing our next one in Los Angeles on the 21st and 22nd of February. So, next month. And what we do
2019, that's 2019 if you're listening to this 3 years from now.
Yeah, 3 years from now, you missed it. It was brilliant.
But there could be another one by then, right?
Yeah.
Check out the website.
So we have these events, and we max it out at 40 people, and it's in a really cool location that we never tell you. We always tell you the vicinity so that you can get your hotels, but we tell you the actual location like about a week before. And what we do is we get you to join. You don't know who's coming. You don't know who's speaking, who's going to be in attendance. And then we ask you one simple question. What problem do you have that's want to be solved? And then I use my Rolodex to get the industry leader, the top shelf advisor to that problem to come to the event and actually solve that problem while they're there. So we've had people in the past giving tips on how to write a book, how to present better, how to get paid speaking gigs, how to build out viral videos, how to start a podcast, how to be the best podcast guest. We have people that give us these problems, and then we bring people in to solve it. Now that's $2,000 for 2 days. And I spoke with you earlier at the beginning of this, and I said to you that alumni, people that have been to past events, they get it at $1,500. If any of your listeners that hear this in time want to go to the LA Speakeasy, then I'll give it to you at the alumni price. All you have to do is email Jessica, and her email is ask@SteveDSims, that's 1M, SteveDSims.com. Just let her know, reference this podcast or your name, and we will grant you it in at the alumni pricing.
Excellent. That's quite gracious of you, Steve. And I'm sure there will be some folks that I think that's a wonderful concept. By the way, I love the idea of sort of the reverse engineering the whole thing and making it a little more personal, because I definitely feel you when you get in, you're sitting and listening to people in that sort of one-sided conversation for a long period of time. It sort of, after a while, starts to really wear you out, no matter how good it is.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Look, it's worked for us. We want to solve people. I love going to seminars and hearing from different people, but I also want to get a problem solved. And sometimes you listen to a speaker and they have no relevance to your industry, your style, whatever. But it may be good, but I want to be able to answer more. I want people to be smarter when they leave than when they turned up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been absolutely epic. As I mentioned to you at the beginning of this show, I'm going to be starting a sort of late night style talk show, variety show in Venice, Venice Beach, not too far from where you live, here in this spring, summertime is what I'm aiming for. And I know exactly who I'm going to reach out to when it's time for me to get Oprah on. So hopefully I can just afford you. But Steve, this has been absolutely epic. You're amazing, my friend. And I do have one final question I'd like to leave you with, and it's the same question I always like to wrap things up with, and it is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Steve Sims?
It's this slogan: no one ever drowned by falling in the water, they drowned by staying there. Get up.
Love it, love it, love it. Steve, you are an inspiration, my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on and connect and share. Keep doing what you do. I know you will.
Cheers, pal.
Cheers, buddy. Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. Before we sign off, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now, if you go to positivehead.com/YO Universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE, and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this: as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.